So they did this study. It was actually the Heart Mind Institute, right? They were the ones that did the
Yeah,
study,
yeah,
right?
Heart Math Institute. Yeah.
Yeah, Heart Math Institute. So what happened was they tabbed up people, like they lined them up with like their heart rate and like all these things, and they did these random pictures. They showed them these random pictures, and they started tracking what was their heart rate when they saw these pictures.
Hmm.
Now, the cool thing was, as they were looking at the data and the timing, they noticed that the heart rate reacted to the picture prior to the picture being shown.
Yes.
Yes, the heart rate reacted. So, for example, they had different. They had random pictures. They had some which was like a puppy that was so cute. Then they had like someone getting mauled. Then they had like, oh, this little, oh, look at this baby with their father. And then they had like some like somebody with an axe,
Hmm.
and the heart would respond to the picture prior to it coming. So they were like, well, what is it about the heart? And that was the jump off to the whole freaking movie. Listen to your heart. It's been calling to you. Listen to your heart.
Who sang that song?
It was Heart, bruh.
Heart sang Heart? Listen to
Yes,
your
Heart
heart?
sang
Oh, okay.
Heart.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
they
right.
did that shit on purpose, man. They
Yeah,
did
man. All right. Okay.
it. All right, so welcome back to
Hmm.
another episode of It's More Than Black or White with your host Brian and Paul.
Hmm.
Bless up to you. Hey, Brian, you saw the subscriber tallies going up, right?
Getting there, man. Getting there. Getting there. You
Man,
know. I was.
even
We were looking at the analytics. I got a little excited last week looking at the analytics, and we had like 77 views, and
yo, bro.
I think only like 3% of those views are subscribers. I don't know what's going on with your guys' fingers out there, man. You gotta hit that subscribe button, man. Help us out.
Listen, like, share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Like, share, subscribe. Come again? Like, share, subscribe. All right, so listen, we're gonna come up with that again at the end. And today is, I think all of our episodes though be or have had impact. Like I like as we're going through and like we're editing and like we're reviewing
Mhm.
these things and you're putting the timestamps in. You see and you're experiencing like what's happening with these calls like
Yeah.
and these conversations. And I think today's another notch in that belt, man. It's something deep, man. You
Yeah.
want to you want to
I'm
tell us what we're
excited
gonna be
for it.
talking about today, man?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for all the stuff that we put out. Like, we both have like probably like 5 decades worth of experience in here, and I want to talk about stuff that I'd want to know if I had no education in the health and wellness field, or
Yeah,
stuff like I would want to tell my family and my loved ones. The stuff
yeah,
that's not really like I said before. I think I said this in the second or third episode. I love what we do because we talk about things that are not mainstream that makes huge differences.
brother.
You know,
So true, so
so
true. And the depth to the woo woo stuff, man.
that's it, man.
That's what I appreciate too. Like I can be a woo woo cat, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the science behind it. And
Sure.
today is another one of those topics where we're going to be talking about the power of the heart. The power of the heart. Hey, man, Brian, I was thinking about this, man. Like when you even hear the term, like what comes to mind for you, bro?
So I've started doing a lot of research. Well, actually, I got into this research with like the Heart Math Institute. It's a
Yeah,
nonprofit organization out of California, and a lot of like we talk about quantum physics in the past.
yeah,
Like so basically quantum physics is like everything that goes beyond the five senses. Just keep it simple. And the
yeah,
Heart Math Institute shows a lot of interesting experiments about the heart and how much of a vital role it plays. And it's
yeah.
not just woo woo stuff, man. It is a force to be reckoned with
Yes,
if you know how to harness it. So
dude,
hopefully we're gonna get a little bit of that today and kind of teach you guys a couple
dude.
techniques that we picked up.
Yes, man. So B, I gotta tell you,
Mhm.
because like when I was telling you about that study in the beginning of the movie, like remember because that was the first time you had heard about that study, right?
Yeah, it's the first time I watched it. When you were talking about it last week, doing about this video, I'm like, "What the hell's the power of the heart?" And you brought in the DVD. Then I was like, "I don't have a DVD player, man." Paul, it's 2023. Like, who has a DVD player? You came through, man. You
Yo, man, listen, because I hold on to shit. Like I work
man,
on my hoarder mentality, my hoarder
yeah,
tendencies. But like,
that's a
listen,
good episode.
so I gotta share this story, B, because so peoples, what happened was, bro, Brian and I, we have our conversation about what we're gonna cover. So we were talking about what we're gonna cover, and I was telling him about this movie called The Power of the Heart. He was like, "What?" Like he just said, and I was doing my best to explain this study in the beginning of the movie, and I could sense when I was telling you, you were like, "What
Yeah,
is this cat talking about?" Right? You're like, dude, I can tell right, in your
yeah.
voice. You're like, okay, let me see the movie.
Mhm.
Let me see the movie. And bruh, after you saw the movie, I think we were texting first, and I could sense your tone in the text, and then when we started talking about it, and you started to understand this the resonance to this study. So, but without any further ado, let's talk about this study first, and
Uh-huh.
this will like get us a jump off into the power of the heart. So, in this documentary, The Power of the Heart, I guess like a documentary entertainment thing. I don't know how you start,
Mhm.
but and so they did this study. There was actually the Heart Mind Institute, right? They were the ones that did the
Yeah,
study,
yeah.
right?
The Heart Math Institute. Yeah.
Yeah, Heart Math Institute. So what happened was they tabbed up people, like they lined them up with like their heart rate and like all these things, and they did these random pictures. They showed them these random pictures, and they started tracking what was their heart rate when they saw these pictures.
Hmm.
Now, the cool thing was, as they were looking at the data and the timing, they noticed that the heart rate reacted to the picture prior to the picture being shown.
Yes.
Yes, the heart rate reacted. So, for example, they had random pictures. They had some which was like a puppy that was so cute. Then they had like someone getting mauled. Then they had like, oh, this little, oh, look at this baby with their father. And then they had like some like somebody with an axe,
Hmm.
and the heart would respond to the picture prior to it coming. So they were like, well, what is it about the heart? And that was the jump off to the whole freaking movie,
Mm.
which was about how the power of the heart, it tells us, it's a guide in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So, brother, I was so excited when you got to watch it. I was even more excited that I actually had a DVD player because I was like, oh my God, I was getting ready to throw this shit out.
Yeah, I
Um,
got it. What got me excited was something that like it's easy to understand. You know
yes.
what I mean? It's easy to explain people. Like
Yeah,
before the picture showed up, the heart rate changed. So it's like, how does the heart see before the eyes do?
brother.
And that to me
Exactly.
was like, holy shit. And then what I loved, like I said, what I loved about it is like this is all science, so and it's easy to explain. There's no woo-woo behind this,
It's no
This
woo,
is
man. These are
yeah.
studies. These are studies. So like thinking about this people, right? And thinking about how the heart knows, this becomes a really powerful thing to start to understand because if you think about it, like how often are we operating from the heart? I
Yeah,
mean, think about it, right? Like B, what would you say? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, how many things block the heart, man?
everything. I think it's from the moment at birth. I think there's basically three things that block people from the heart, from using the heart as their guide. And the
Mhm.
heart is what Gary Zuboff says in the seat of the heart, the seat of the soul. It's one of
Yeah,
his books out there I've been reading, and the guy that created the film, The Power of the Heart. I
yeah,
watched an interview on him to talk about this, and one of the things he said is your heart is basically synonymous with the soul.
yeah,
So it's like how do people get into these funks as they get older? And I think there's three basic things. I think it's programming at a young age. We talked about this before. The first 7 years is you're developing your root chakra, and everything that you see, sense with all your five senses gets kind of hardwired into your body, and that becomes your personality for
yeah,
the, for a big chunk of your personality.
yeah,
Number two, I think it's linear education. We go to school, and schools teach you. I'm not knocking schools, but it's not real education. They teach you what to think, not how to think.
And
And
how to
people
take tests.
exactly, yeah, exactly, how to memorize this and how to take tests. There's a need for it, and then sometimes there isn't a need for school. I think a real education happens outside after you graduate. And number three, I think, is we all suffer a disease to please. We always want to, you know, we sacrifice ourselves to please others. So
Right.
all three things in a conjunction, it's you tend not to use your heart too much, and you start using your brain
Yeah.
too much,
Yeah.
and people become too logical. They become too rational. There's a time and place for everything, but you don't see the whole picture.
Yeah, bro.
Like a good analogy, like I heard, was like, think as you're driving down the road, and your brain can only see the turns up ahead, to the left and to the right, maybe a couple miles down the road. Your soul can see the whole journey.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
I think that's an important analogy to kind of understand the difference between the two. Your
Yeah.
brain only goes so far, where your soul, if you listen to your soul, you see the bigger picture, you see the whole picture.
I think it's interesting what you say, and I really like what you're saying here. And I'd like to break those three down because there's like these three of those concepts, and I really like that disease to please, man. That was tip top. Um, I want to like the programming piece is so interesting
Mm.
because there really is a programming away, like a programming and conditioning away from connecting to the heart, man. I mean, it's shown in like the heart is shown in like the rom com and like the hey like you gotta love, but
Hmm.
like really that heart like you mentioned is also the it's like it gives the whole picture of the journey, and so much in our I'm judging here like in a lot of our consumption, whether it's through movies or TV, it programs us to go away from the heart and come into the mind solely. So
Sure.
everything's got to be very logical rather than sensual and sensing where to go, what to do, man. Listen, it's really I think it's really damaging us because there's just a if you look at the amount of depression and mental illness and the a rise in consumption of antidepressants and even things like opioid addiction. Listen, these are things that I just drew this correlation between the archetype of the lover. You ever
Yeah.
heard of this the archetype like with Carl Jung?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it talks about new beginnings like love and being sensual,
Hmm.
and the sensual piece is like it's not just like hey baby come over here let me give you something. It's more like your senses, like what you feel, what you taste, what you touch, what you hear, and all
Yes.
those things bring aliveness to the body and to the heart, man. And I
Yeah.
think those are things that we start to steer away from.
Yeah. And every time, like, one of the things I got out of this, listen to this, the guy that created the movie, one of the things he says is your soul isn't passive. The soul has intentions, and it's our job to identify these intentions of our soul. So so like Paul, you're here in a body, a personality,
Yeah.
but you also have something what they call a soul signature, very specific blueprint that no one else has and will ever have or has ever had. So like Mechtile, there's a guy who's a medieval mystic. This guy was pretty interesting. I read up a little bit
Like that title.
about him. So he says one of the things his famous quotes is like a fish cannot drown in water, a bird cannot fall from the sky. So the element is of a fish is to swim, and the element of a bird is to fly. So we all have this specific element, I can't say it, specific soul signature that no one else has in our
Right.
soul. So your
Right.
soul has intentions, and this is your purpose: is to figure out what to live by and how to fulfill those intentions. But the only way to do this is to quiet their mind. So you have a lot of like successful people, and most successful people. And my idea of success is being happy and filled with peace. That's
Yeah.
that's my idea of success. It's not anything materialistic. But most people aren't successful in the beginning because most people go through the motions of social programming, linear education, and they just want
Mhm.
to be accepted. They want to be normal. They want to fit in. And all of a
Yes.
sudden, they have like this crisis in their life, and they realize that all that programming and education was absolute bullshit, and it doesn't work. It doesn't serve them. So for example, like, I mean, I would love to hear an example from you too. Like I was programmed to growing up to go to school, get good grades, get an important business job, work hard in a corporate setting, move up the ladder, be happy with your week and a half or 2 weeks vacation a year, don't ruffle any feathers on the way. And my
Oh,
ego, my mind was like, yes, 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 I'm on the right path because that's what I was programmed to do. But my energy just felt so off. And that is what an inner conflict is. That's how people get depressed. That's how anxiety happens. That's how you just don't love yourself. And in return, you can't build relationships and so on and so forth.
yeah.
So I mean, we all have stories of feeling this like emptiness inside.
Dude, I know exactly what you mean. Like you know what I appreciate. Like a lot of your experiences are very similar to mine, man.
Mm,
Because that's that was something for me. Like it was programming. Like, look, man, my parents came from Jamaica, man. So it was like they were always so passionate about like you got to have a better life than we had.
mm,
And like it was like like they really didn't have it. I think their highest education was like sixth grade and shit. Like they were coming from like working all the time and shit. So it was so ingrained and programmed. Like you're gonna go to school, you're gonna do this, you're gonna get a job, you're gonna work for a certain amount of time. And I got that programming from my parents and
mm,
also from my other parents, which were AKA my older siblings, who were like a lot older than I am. It's
yeah,
just like, man, go get a job, go do this. And dude, I remember I was so enthralled with the Matrix because it really, and also Office Space, the movie, because it was like my life, man.
yeah.
Like TPS loads letters, like there's something else out there. And it wasn't until like I lost my job,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
And this is when I lost my job at ADP. I was like, yeah, I'm getting successful, man. I'm going to the city in a suit and shit. I'm like, we
yeah,
went to trips to Hawaii and shit. I'm like, who you with? And then I get home, I'd be like,
uh-huh, yeah,
drinking my freaking face off because I'm freaking miserable, bro.
yeah.
And I failed to follow my heart. And like, I was always training, but like when I got fired and they wanted to hire me back, which was crazy.
Of course,
Um,
yeah,
what's that?
yeah. It's like corporate world. They would get rid of you, and then like a couple months later, like, hey, instead it's easier to and less expensive to have you back, and then train somebody new. Want to come
Bruh,
back? You know?
come on, man. I was like, man, go kick rocks.
Yeah.
Like, it really helped me to settle back into what I love. I love training. And what I found as I got older was that I love to teach, man.
Mm,
Like that to me fuels my heart, man. And when I really started tapping on that, even though I'd have to get full-time gigs late and like even up until now, I always make sure that I tap into that part of my heart, which is to teach, man. And like from there, like I wanna get into that linear. I'd like to get into the linear education piece. But is there anything else you want to cover with the programming?
no, I mean, like, just again, you got to be careful as parents. I think, you got to be careful as good friends to people that look up to you. It's not always that black or white. You know, yeah, there you go. Kind of mixing with your YouTube channel, right?
Shameless plug.
So it's like, I think parents try too hard. I mean,
Yeah,
every parent wants their kid to be successful, but
of
their
course.
idea of success for most parents that I talk to is get a great job, make good money, and
Right.
that's basically it. Oh yeah, we want you happy too, but that usually doesn't go together if you push them into a job that they don't want it. You know,
Right, man.
it's one thing I got to say. I got to say, I'm very happy. Like my mom was awesome. She's like, I don't care what you do
Yeah,
as long as you're happy. I remember her saying this to me at such an early age, and that always stuck with me. Where my
yeah,
dad on the other end was like, you got to go to school, you got to get good grades, you have to move up in your business world, you got to do
yeah.
all this stuff because that's the education that he had from his parents.
Right.
You know?
It's wild, man. Because even talking about that concept of happy, a lot of times that can even be programmed.
Sure.
It's like, well, happy is like you have a job and you have your wife and two and a half kids and you picket fence and all these
Mhm.
things. But it's like, is that really happiness?
Yeah.
Because, and this is where the heart comes in, man. Because, and you mentioned something that's important: being still, being willing to listen and hear what your heart is saying, man. Like,
Mhm.
and it's not, some people may be like, man, these guys, man, or like some people may even think I'm judging. Some people may think like, what is that even like to listen to your heart, bro? Like, heart said it best. Listen to your heart. It's been calling to you.
Mhm.
Like, what are the things
Yeah.
that stick out to you? So, because I do want to come back to the movie because there's some powerful things, but I really like what you were talking about with the linear education, because I think that's the piece that is in direct opposition to the flow of the heart,
Sure.
because the heart's going to take you wherever it senses it's meant to go, right? Or the
Mhm.
soul imprint, that connection with your heart and your soul imprint is like where it's going to go. But that linear piece is like, no, I got to stay this path. I got
Yeah.
to stay here. I got to stay here. No, 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 I can't.
Mhm.
But it's far from that, man. It's far from that, man. Um, I'm fascinated with this. Like, so when you were in school and you were like, actually, even after school, let's talk about after school, because like we'll get to that in another podcast later, but like after school, right? Like, how would you say like your experiences were like a linear education?
Well, everybody, like, no matter what you want to study or what you want to become, you always have to take the same classes. You always have, you
Mm,
know, I remember like trying to, I
mm,
went for criminal justice,
mm,
and it was just like, I needed to take an elective, and one of the electives I had to teach or had to take was poetry. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why? Now I realize that school, it's a business. I didn't
yeah,
realize it at the time. It's a business. You know, schooling. School. I mean, like I just had this conversation with my business partner earlier today. Her daughter's in school, and it's like the degree that gets you a job interview.
right.
After that, no one gives a shit where you went to school as long as you can perform and make that money for that company and grow.
Yes.
They don't give a shit after 5 years now. Like, well, he went to Harvard. We probably should give him a raise, or he went here and got a 4.0, and he went to this sorority or this whatever. He played football. They don't care. Once day one, once you start there, if you're not making them money, you're expendable. And that education's out the trash. And that's the problem with it. And we talked about this the other day. Like, there's three things that school doesn't teach you. It doesn't teach you how to make money. It doesn't teach you how to be happy. And it doesn't teach you how to build relationships. Three most
Bro.
important things you need to be successful in life, in my opinion.
Yeah, you hit it on the head when you talked about that, man. You hit it on the head, and I think it's schooling and education can take the joy out of things.
Sure.
And like for me, that linear education, it really took my heart out of art and drawing. Like I remember when I was a kid, like that was my way to escape. I would just, bro. I remember I would draw for hours, bro,
Yeah.
hours just sketching,
Hmm.
practicing drawing cars and people's faces. Like I just loved it. I could get immersed in it.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I went to college and I had to take one of those electives. And I was like, oh, art? Psh, yo,
Yeah.
piece of cake, bro.
Yeah.
This is an
Crush this.
A, son.
Yeah.
This is an A.
Yeah.
And it was like, bro, it was the freaking worst, bro, because it was like, I need you to make 50 drawings within the next week. I was like, 50 drawings? He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta be at different things. I'm like, and then I found myself like, it was like an assignment. It was like making it a competition. Like, oh, I gotta have my 50.
Yeah.
And then it was like,
And
oh,
those
well, you're
50 are probably all half-assed because you're trying to rush through it. You're not
oh,
you're not painting with intention. You're not drawing with intention. You're just trying to get this shit done. And that's another
exactly.
problem. They're trying to fill up a syllabus, or they're trying to fill up a semester and just putting a bunch of fluff in there. You
Dude, it's
know, like,
crazy. It's
you
crazy,
know,
man.
yeah,
And that, it. I get so jammed up about it, man, because like I remember after that semester, that class, I was like, I didn't draw for years, bro. I would say like, because I started school and I quit school because I'm far from a fan of education in
hmm,
college, school
yeah,
and shit. But I went back to get my degree because I
hmm,
was like, I would go for a security job and they're like, you have a degree? I was like, mother hoo ha, I'm carrying a flashlight.
yeah,
I need a freaking degree for that?
yeah,
What? But like anyway, so I went back and I remember after that semester, it was technically my sophomore year. Bro, I didn't draw for like 10 years after that.
hmm, yeah,
I didn't draw again until I got into my 30s, man. So maybe more than 10 years. But bro, I was freaking pissed because it just took everything out of me with like it took the love, it took my heart out of really putting what I was feeling, what I was experiencing onto a drawing pad.
yeah,
Let my pen, let my hand, let my heart, my hand become the vessel to express what the heck was going on
yeah,
for me, man.
sure.
And
Yeah, I went through a
I
2 year school for
yeah,
5 years, and the only thing I learned is I should have never went to college.
yeah,
That's,
bro.
that's the only education I got out of it. I should have never went. But that's me. I have a very entrepreneurial background. If I was going there to be a doctor or an engineer or an architect, I need
Yeah,
schooling. Like,
you'd have to, right?
you know,
You'd have to. And
and that's
listen,
not.
and this is the thing, right? And this comes back to the heart. If your heart is in education and school
Mhm.
and you can keep your heart in it, then go for it, right? Like
Yeah,
this is what we're saying here, peoples, is your heart is a powerful driver. It is knowing, it is wise,
yeah,
it's compassionate. It's at the seat of giving and receiving. It's like when we talk about even the heart energy center, the anahata, the heart chakra.
yeah,
It's the seat of compassion, forgiveness, unconditional love, man. And it's a balance piece.
sure.
It sits in the middle of the seven chakras.
Hmm.
So it's like, it's that balance piece. So it's a way of balancing us that
Yeah,
a lot of times we forget or we put off to the side, bro. It's freaking sad, man.
yeah. And people may be out there wondering, like, all right, how do I know if it's coming from my heart? I think an easy way to realize that quickly is, does it just flow? Is it
Yeah,
effortlessly? Do you have like a calm about it? If you have anxiety or stress about it, or you feel like you need to get it done, it's not coming from the heart. It's not
no,
coming from the brain. Listen, there's gonna be a lot of things in life that you need to do that that doesn't come from the heart just to get to that point. But overall, like, if you love teaching, like for me, I love teaching. Paul loves teaching. Like,
yeah,
this is effortlessly from us.
bro.
I love educating myself. I can sit here for hours and talk about stuff. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's just my thing. I love it. I love educating and I love teaching.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm the same, man. And I think that's the piece. Like people, you'll know what's coming from your heart when, like Brian said, it's effortless. You're in flow, and
Mhm.
also when it's a pattern.
Yeah.
Like if you're sensing a pattern, I think that's what helped me get to the understanding. Like, man, when, like I think it was, you know, truth be told, like it was during one of my mushroom experiences
Hmm.
where I was just like, I think anyone out there that's done mushrooms, it's like kind of like maybe when you've done it, you're like, where am I going in my life? And then like it hits you, and then you're like,
Yeah.
I see it. You know what I mean? It was like, and I
Hmm.
remember, I remember that moment where it was like, I saw like the teaching, I saw schools and like
Hmm.
yards, and I remember that was actually, oh my god, that's crazy, dude. I'm just remembering like after this happened, this is when I got back into drawing, bro. I actually
Hmm.
painted. I got a blank canvas, and I painted a school, and it had like I had a heart on this in the represent the east. It had a sword for the west, for the south, for the warrior. It had a magic hat for the magician on the west, and then it had a crown. Was it a crown? I don't know, something for the king, but I remember it was a freaking school because I was like, yo, I'm here
Mhm.
to educate, man. Bring on the freaking chalkboard. But like, I'm saying that because like I think it's important for us to recognize like there are patterns that are in this. And Bree, I want to talk to that last piece before we get into some other stuff like the disease to please.
Mm.
How does that block the heart?
You're not living your you're not I tell people all the time, you're not put on this planet to be a lifeguard. You're not here to save everyone, you know? And I also tell people like I got this from somebody else who was like, if you don't say no, your yeses have no more they don't have any value.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
you have to say no more. We talked about this in the last episode. I think too many people are so like we talk about the third like they want to fit in so bad. They don't want people to talk bad about them. They don't
Yeah.
want they want to. It makes themselves feel better because a lot of people they don't feel good about themselves, so it makes themselves feel better when they help out other people. Which I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't help out other people, but if you feel like like somebody's like, oh, this person wants to borrow like $100 from me. I don't really want to give it to them because I don't have the money, but they're gonna be mad at me if I don't. Well, fucking a, don't give it them.
Don't give
Like But people we have this overwhelming need to please people, and so it's like I Paul Check got me into this where you have your I goals, you have your hour goals. I'm sorry, your we goals, and you have your hour goals. Like you can't give into a relationship until you feed yourself first.
Mm.
Take care of yourself first
Yeah, bro.
and be strong enough for yourself. How are you going to give that to relationships? How are you going to give that to your friends and your family and your significant other? You can't. It's
Right.
impossible. Then after that, like I think we all have a purpose. And we want to leave behind a legacy to do something bigger than ourselves, whatever
Mm.
that be. It could be you want to set up a orphanage for kids, or you even if you like want to be just a great parent, whatever you want to leave behind a legacy.
Yeah.
You can't do that without working on yourself first. So it all kind of starts in this chain.
Dude, it's man, man, brother.
Mhm.
Snaps, man. Snaps to that, man. Salute to what you're saying. And as you were talking, one of the things that came to mind with this disease to please is the disease to please a wallet or finances or riches. And I
Mhm.
say that because like it's interesting. So I took a mentee call at lunch today, and this woman was talking about her situation and her situation with like this job that she's in and how she's experiencing feeling stuck
Mhm.
and she was witnessing it and acknowledging that every time she starts to get on somewhat of a roll, there's something that knocks her back. And when we talked more about it, I was like, well, what is it that you want to do? And she was explaining it, and then she was like, she was talking to her partner, and her partner was like, yeah, you're just not the same since you took this role. Like
Yeah.
you used to do this more and this more and this more. And as we were going into the call, I was like, I want you to get back to what you did that you love,
Mhm.
like because this piece of the disease to please, I really appreciate this because when we get stuck, I'm gonna speak for myself. When I get stuck in that pattern of like wanting to please others, I am blocking my heart because my heart's like, why are we doing that? Shut up, heart. We're
Mhm.
gonna do it anyway. That's basically what we're doing. That's
Yeah.
basically what I've done, right? I think that's one of the things that's contributed to my high blood pressure is that like I was so people pleasing and
Yeah.
wanted to like, oh yeah, that like my heart was like, no, man,
Mhm.
like go this way. And I got to really start listening to it. And this is what I was talking to my mentee about today. Like, listen, it's time for you to start going in the direction that's home for you.
Mhm.
That's like that's heartful. Like that means something because and this is our life right here, right? Because everything, the majority of things that are out here, and I started mentioning this before, with the consumption, the majority of things are out there telling us of how unworthy we are,
Mhm.
how much we need something, but our heart's never going to do that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Our heart's never going
Yeah.
to be like, you piece of dodo, you
Yeah.
suck. Your heart's going
Mhm.
to be like, listen, have grace for yourself.
Yeah.
Let's do this again, huh? You know what I mean, bro? It's
100%.
wild, man.
Yeah. You gotta know your value, man. Gotta know your value.
brother. It's and I'm so it's so true knowing the value. Let me before we start tapping into like what are the ways that people can connect with the heart. Because listen, we have some really good great blockers here as far as linear education, the disease to please. What was the other one? Oh yeah, programming,
Programming, yeah.
television programs. They call it that for a reason, party people. Even though I really do like the show Winning on HBO Max, that's
Hmm.
a whole other show. That's a whole other story. Um, what do you see as other potential blocks of the heart, man?
Oh, I think by far fear is the ultimate block.
Yeah.
Fear is not what we are, but fear is what most people live in. You know what I mean?
Say that, yo, but hit that one more time for the
Let me
people in the back.
double click that for you.
Yeah,
So
hit
fear,
that.
yeah, fear is not what we are, but fear is what most people live in. So our soul is of infinite intelligence, infinite consciousness, infinite love. And when we're not aligned with our true identity, which is unconditional love, we experience fear because that means we're out of alignment with our true self. So a lot of times I might get pissed off or I get aggravated or I get annoyed with somebody. And I'm really quickly realizing, all right, I'm not in tune with my heart. I'm in tune with my brain. What's going on? I'm not in tune with my true authenticity, my true identity. And that's the way I kind of look at it. I think fear is the biggest thing. We talk about this plenty of times. Everything stems from two emotions, love and fear. Everything negative comes from fear. So when somebody's angry, like I see these, like it's funny. It's like I see these athletes out there. Like nowadays, like football, for example, it's so ridiculous. Every time somebody makes a play, like celebrating, they're jumping around, they're just like doing all this crazy, like making fun of the other player. That's all fear based. You look to a trained mind, you're a child. You're a child. Anybody that understands psychology 101, these people that do that, you're an insecure child. And it's
Yeah,
not. I mean, there's sometimes like you get amped up. I understand. I'm a big competitor. I played a lot of sports growing up, and you get amped up. But when you go to that extra level where you're trying to put somebody else down,
yeah,
that's the line you crossed. You know.
dude, man, um, man, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Went
Um,
off a little tangent there,
I
but
love it
anything.
though.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
That's why we're here.
yeah, if it's not love or empathy
Yeah,
or compassion that you're having something that anything that kind of tweaks your emotion, it's coming, it's stemming from fear, and you're
yeah,
not connected with your heart.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's so fine with that. Listen, like I'm sure yogis get gotten pissed off and aggravated. It's like we're not perfect, but I
bro,
think the best thing to do is be aware of why you're like this. Be aware,
bro.
get yourself in the moment, and kind of like I kind of like laugh at myself. I'm like, all right, yeah, I could handle that situation a little better.
Yes. And
Yeah.
can we talk about this yogi thing? Because I think
Hmm.
everyone thinks that if a person does yoga, they teach
Hmm.
yoga, they're in a constant bliss state, which I'll be free of talking for every single yoga practitioner or teacher.
Yeah.
That is the furthest thing from the freaking truth, man.
Hmm.
That's the furthest spring thing from the truth. Like, because listen, I've been teaching yoga for going on 14, yeah, yeah, like almost 14 years now. And let me tell you what, I'm a look. I put myself together, man. I get mad at the moon, mother hoo
Oh,
ha.
it's funny. I was actually having this conversation with my old business partner the other day. One of
Yeah,
my old past jobs was I used to go into gyms and gyms that were failing, and I used to take over their personal training staff, and I would educate them and stuff like that. So a
yeah,
lot of times we would have to go in these gyms, and I probably would have like 10 gyms like this. And every single time we would go into a gym, if I
yeah.
had to let people go, it wasn't the 200-pound, 250-pound roided guy that gave me problems. Never. It was always like the 120-pound yoga instructor. They were, and I'm not calling out all the yoga people, like, but they were the most fucked up as far as like, mentally. Like, I've had my cars keyed, I've had my tires slashed, I've had my wheels broke on 4 different occasions, all from yogis. You know,
Bruh,
so
let
it's like
me tell
now,
you,
so
son.
when somebody comes across, you're like, oh, it's like we're gonna have this new yoga instructor. I'm like, oh man, what are we
Oh
bringing in
shit.
here?
Be like, yo,
So,
can you someone call security
yeah,
for me?
yeah. but it was never like the big dudes. It was never like the problems like that. I have no problem sitting down, man. But I've had, man,
Listen,
yeah, it's
I'm right
funny
there
you said
with you,
that.
bro. And I
Uh-huh.
listen. I'm around yoga people a lot.
Yeah.
And listen, man, we got some things too.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think it's man coming back. Yeah, come back to that fear thing. I think it's so important to recognize that piece of how much fear will clamp you down.
Hmm.
Uh,
Definitely.
and and listen, people, especially when it's a fear of uncertainty, right? A fear of like, who am I? These fears are real, even though few will actually
Yeah.
talk about it. Be
Yeah.
They're real fears.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, as we start to wind down, so we talked about the blocks just so to help you acknowledge, not
Yeah.
to be like to beat up, is to acknowledge, because until we acknowledge these blocks, once we acknowledge them, then
Hmm.
we can move into and through them and then
Yeah.
really tap into the heart. And the heart is necessary to help you acknowledge and move through it.
Yeah. One other thing I
Forgiving.
want to kind of focus on with fear
Yeah, what's
is
up?
so again, when you're in fear, you're out of alignment with your true self.
Yeah,
And
man.
mainstream media is programming all of us all the time. Fear this, fear that, COVID, AI, all this other stuff. And when you have too much fear, you don't think logically. It shuts off the blood flow in your prefrontal cortex. And it's when you become like that, you actually become stupider. You become dumb. You become like almost like a reptile, and you're so much more easier to control.
Yes, sir.
That's another thing with fear. That's why it's like I don't watch the news anymore. Why? There's nothing good that's going to be on the news. You know,
Right.
it's like always something. Oh, COVID, this monkeypox, AI's taking over, wars over here, diseases over here, wildfires are all coming around. Like people are like, you don't care what's going on in the world. I mean, like
Nope.
to a certain extent, but like I don't give a fuck. Like
Yeah.
what am I doing? Like and it puts people in this fear state. And when you're in this fear state, you can be controlled so easily.
It's
You know?
you hit on something like this is now we're coming again. Science, this is brain science,
Oh,
Brian's
this is
talking
this
right
is
here.
this is study. Yeah, study.
Yeah,
When
this
you
is
when
study,
you're in
bro.
fear, you have a lower IQ. There's no
Yes.
there's no it's you become a reptile. You become stupid. You can't think logically.
Yep.
This is not something I'm just made off the top of my head. This is
No.
science.
No,
You know?
this is all like, especially when you get in that fear space, you're activating your limbic system, which is
Hmm.
something called your amygdala. So your amygdala
Yeah.
is like your fight or flight. You're like
Mhm.
you're feeling, if someone's going to tell you the winning numbers to the Powerball, if you're in an amygdala hijack or you're in that limbic
Yeah.
system, your executive brain is turned off.
Yeah.
That prefrontal cortex Brian's talking about,
Mhm.
switch off, done.
Yeah.
You're failing to hear anything logical or analytical. And
Yeah.
this is the piece, man, like about really connecting to the heart and being present
Yeah.
and getting calm and getting still, because
And
it's gonna shut that part of your brain down,
yeah.
specifically like that fight or flight stress module
Yeah.
brain, and start to give you the opportunity to be able to think and process and connect to what your heart's experiencing and what your body's experiencing and activating your senses, man. This is where
Amen.
things start to come alive.
That's it. And living through your heart, it's all about courage. Why?
Yeah,
Because if we live from the heart, our heart becomes our inner authority, not our parents, not our friends, not the media, not your boss, not people that you're trying to please. You need courage and you need to stick with this because it's not always easy. And a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, you're nuts for doing this." But everyone has, like I said before, their own soul signature, their element. We're all different. So connecting with your heart is all about learning about you.
yes,
It's all about courage. It takes a lot of guts to live through your heart because you're doing something in a way that people are not comfortable or they can't do on their own. You're bringing
right.
something new to the table.
Every time, bro.
You know?
Every time. Being heart led, man.
Yeah, and it's tough to
Heart
keep that courage, man. It's tough to keep that
led.
courage because you're going to go through some ups and downs, and when you go through those downs, you're going to be like, "I told you so." You got to go back. You got to get that job. You got to do this. You got to, all this other stuff. So, you know,
Listen, and listen, Brian, you're speaking a lot of truth here, because this is it is about living from this place is about courage
Hmm.
because again it's your unique soul imprint. So the things that are heart driven for you are most likely going to be foreign to other people.
Sure.
And then other all of a sudden people be like, well, what are you doing that for? You're crazy, you got to do
Yeah.
that. Like, listen, man, who cares what the hell people say? And
Yeah.
again, I say that and it's easy to say, yet at the same time it's a practice. And I think, like, especially like winding down, like coming to like, B, what are a couple things like you would recommend for people to start to really connect to that part of themselves, man? Like who
Yeah.
they are, like that
So
piece.
it all depends. For me, and for me, it's like my best advice I can give you is what works for you. For me,
Yeah.
meditation, um, being grateful for things, cultivating gratitude, that gets me into that flow. For you, it might be, hey, drawing. Some
Yeah.
other people will be like, hey, just walking in nature, man. I feel connected. I feel that flow. People are like, some people might want to play the piano, whatever it is. You got to find out what works best for you, what causes that state of kind of like flow and just connection to the soul. So it's everyone is different, so I'm not going to say everyone needs to meditate because some people might not want to meditate. If you're an artist, you might want to draw. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like what you're saying, man, because I think for me it's on the same page.
yeah.
It's like being still and doing like so when I say be still, like really learning to sit with yourself.
Hmm.
So when you're experiencing heartache, when you're experiencing joy, when you're experiencing the fears, when you're experiencing sadness, bliss, all these things, to be able to sit in those different experiences will awaken your heart, man, because
Definitely.
it gives you the opportunity to really experience it and have patience and grace with yourself, which are the heart's biggest some of their biggest attributes. And
Sure.
another thing for me is doing something or some things that bring you joy. Like, what can you do that will put a smile on your face, man?
Hmm.
And it's just free of. I want to put this out here. This is free of like anything as far as recreational drugs or alcohol or listen, even sex. Like, what is something that you do? Is it frolicking barefoot
Hmm.
in the grass? Is it swimming? Is it going down a water slide? Is it like playing with your kids, like playing with your spouse, like being close to them, like whatever that is? Do that. Make time for that because it's your way to check back in with your internal compass to know what's the right direction for you and to make sure that you're on the right direction. So take that, man, and rock with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, man.
I mean, there's one story that so like one of the reasons we I like talking about this is because if you don't live to your soul's intention, it causes a
Yeah,
lot of inner turmoil in you.
yeah.
It causes a lot of diseases in you that can be easily fixed. There was a story out there. I forgot the woman's name off the. I think it was the Nita Morgani story. And basically, what her story was, this is interesting. I want to share with everyone out there. She basically had lymphoma, right? She had a cancer of the lymphatic system. She was in this Hong Kong hospital, and basically the doctors were like, "Listen, you have about 6 months to, or 6 hours to live. 6 hours to live." So they're like, I would fly in your family and everything like that now, so you can say your goodbyes. So as her brother came in from India and her friends coming saw her mom came and saw her, she slipped in this state of like in a coma. And while she was in the coma, she had this like heightened state of consciousness. In her own words, she had this like 360-degree consciousness where she was aware of everything at the same time, at the same moment. And at that point, she realized, not to get this goes into quantum physics, but there's no such thing as time, and it's just an illusion. Illusion. And
Mm,
her belief was there is no such thing as past lives or reincarnation because everything is all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So she sees a friend that just recently passed from cancer, and she also sees her father. And what was interesting was this is the first time she saw her father with unconditional love towards her. Because growing
Mm-hmm.
up, he was a very strict Hindu man. He wanted her to have like an arranged marriage. She wasn't happy with the man that she married. She wanted her to have a certain job, so she went and got this job and was like wasn't happy with herself. And then she realized at that point it was like the ego, her personality, and the social conditioning was all connected to the body. And her father was for the first time showing her unconditional love. He's like, I'm sorry about like how I treated you. You need to realize that all this fear that you've been growing up with or that I instilled on you is in your cells and that's causing the cancer. And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. It's like, okay, it's like, kind of like good to know now, but thank God I don't go to go back to that. She thought she was like passed on in her
So
life.
she was done, man. Nah, nah, nah.
She's like, well, I don't want to deal with that again. And he's like, no, 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 your time here is not done. It's like, and she's like, well, I don't want to go through all that pain and suffering. And it's been horrible. I've been dealing with this like, for years. So her
Yeah.
father's like, listen, you're going to go back within 3 weeks. The doctors are not going to find any sign of cancer in you. So long story short, she comes out of the coma. 3 weeks, doctors can't find a drop of cancer in her body. And she goes on, and that was her purpose. Her purpose now was to like write a book about this. And then she was like, "Oh, how do I write a book?" Wayne Dyer, who was like one of the biggest spiritual gurus in the North America at the time, he passed away a few years ago. He found out about the
What's up to
story.
Wayne?
Yeah, yeah. He found out about the story. She wrote a book. He published it, and boom, it just blew up. And that's what she does now. She goes around tours and talks about how it teaches people how to live their life in an authentic way. I
Mm-hmm.
really truly believe this. Like we talked about this before on a holistic level. Muscle controlled by organ controlled by hormones. Your hormones are controlled by foods and thoughts that you put in your body. If you're carrying, if you have social conditioning, and you're pre-programmed and you have a disease to please, and you're not living your authentic life, I really truly believe that that puts cancer in you. I think that's one of the reasons cancer rates are really high these days. You know, amongst other things.
Yeah, bro.
So if you're feeling like you have like these undiagnosed issues that doctors can't figure out, you need to take a look at yourself. You need to do a deep dive,
Yeah, bro.
into yourself and kind of figure out, what to do. And there's an old Suey saying the longest journey you'll ever make is from your head to your heart.
Yeah,
It takes
bro.
time. It takes time. It's not
Yeah.
because you're stupid or slow. It just takes time.
It takes
You
time
know.
and
You know.
effort into it too, man. Effort too,
Yeah,
man. Put the effort in. But yeah, I'm so happy you shared that, man. And I'm so happy that you all have taken this journey and trip with us. Listen, B and I, well, Brian and I, we're here for you. So what the heck does that mean? Like we're here in these podcasts, so like, share, and comment. And also if you have some things that really resonated with you in these podcasts, leave it in the comments. Also in our notes, like you'll notice that everything's broken down by timestamp, and also there'll be information for you to reach out to either Brian or I.
Mhm.
We do offer mentorships and consulting, and we can work with this. So even if it's like you like what we're saying and you're like, I have no idea how to get here,
Mhm.
let's sit down. Let's have a conversation because this is what we love to do. This is why we're doing this. Putting it
Yeah,
out here on YouTube so that we can get to the masses. And like, if it's something that you want help with individually, then reach out to us and allow us to help you, allow us to be of service to you. And with that, man, listen, hey, I'm ready to rock, man. You ready to go?
dude, I have nothing else to say, man. I'm tapped out, man. I'm tapped
Listen,
out.
man, we called in the guys, bro. They
Yeah,
just like
man. Yeah.
and to wrap it up, listen to your heart. It's been calling to you. Listen to
Well, we'll be doing a karaoke night soon, and
We will be. We
yeah.
will be.
Oh man,
Yes. T-shirts too, man, so people
that's
can
it.
buy them. All
I
right.
love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Peace out, everybody.
Everyone,
Peace.
appreciate you.